What's up, everyone? Kevin Carrillo here, and welcome to another episode of the Cannabinoid Connect podcast. My guest today is Nicolás Botti, co-founder and CEO of Grow with Jane. What's up, Nicolás Botti?
What's up, Kevin? How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Everything good. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed. Happy Friday indeed. It's been a long week, a good week, productive week. We got a lot of episodes in, which is good. But how about you? I know that you're in Argentina. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I'm in Argentina. The week has been good. We got on the weekend another announcement to keep on going with the quarantine, which is not fun news. But stores are starting to open and some regulations started to change. I don't know. It's been good.
Yeah, it seems like slow and steady, right? So is y'all haven't had any of the phase openings at all? You're still in lockdown since when they started back in what, like April or end of March?
Like we started like mid-March, like pretty soon. We had like a couple of cases and we closed down pretty much everything all of a sudden. And we basically stopped it. I want to look at the number because I don't remember it, but we have a really low number of we have 27K who got it historically and 700 dead. So it's pretty low. Again, we're not the US. What are you, 340 million people? We are 45, something like that.
Right. Yeah, the population size is completely different for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, man, I mean, hopefully they lift the quarantine soon, and y'all can get back to somewhat of normalcy.
Yeah.
But tell me about well, let's first back up and talk about yourself. Tell the audience a little about who you are, and what got you interested in starting your business.
So my name is Nicolás Botti, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Grow with Jane. Grow with Jane is a platform for cannabis home growers. Basically, we help people go from seed to harvest, and basically we want to be able to connect every single grower around the world. There's a bunch of people growing weed in their houses. We were one of them, we still are, and we wanted to build a solution for people like us. And here we are in this adventure of the cannabis industry, which is not a normal industry, let's say, as you may know.
No, I mean, I that's what I'm interested to talk to you about, because I know here in the U.S., it's basically the wild, wild west in terms of different state regulations. Of course, at the federal level, it's illegal. So that has been interesting, the way companies have been navigating that. But I'd like to hear about the climate in South America. How is Argentina's market for cannabis, and how does it compare to other countries?
There is no market. It's illegal here. So both grow it in your house. It's illegal to sell it. It's illegal to stock it. We don't have dispensaries at all. But we're a software company, so we're lucky that we are providing a service in the shape of an app in a website, and we get to talk to our users who are from Italy and Spain and the US and Canada. We get people from South Africa. We get people from the craziest places you can imagine, and they are all the same. So it's weird because when back in 2015, when we started talking about this, we were like, yeah, we're going to start building it. And the TV has told us that as soon as you start building it, somebody shows up with a wad of cash and you're done. That's it. That is success. That is the Silicon Valley dream. But it's not. And it took us up until like 2017, until a couple of companies in the US saw us, and they basically invested in us, and we went to Cannabis Boulder, which is a business accelerator of the cannabis companies, which is the best. They're awesome. So we spent since May of 2019 till August of 2019 in Colorado, and it blew our minds off. Like the culture of cannabis in the US, it's completely different to what we experience in South America. and in Europe. We've been in Spain as well, and it's a whole nother world. Um, it's different, not bad. Like for example, in Europe, I don't know if you know this, they sell seeds. It's a regular thing. Like you want to buy cannabis seeds, you just go online, you get shipped to your door, and you're set. Just grow your own weed. But in the US, it's not like that, and it's a different way of looking at the business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I'm just so that the audience is aware of exactly what your app does. Basically, when you think about growing your own personal plants, right, for personal growth, consumption use, you have to think about light hours, soil pH levels, light cycles, temperature, flowering the plants, watering the plants. So basically, what Grow with Jane is it's an app for beginners, giving them the tools basically to get the seed in the soil and then out for harvest. Is that right?
That's pretty much it. I have to ask you: have you ever grown cannabis plants?
In college, a buddy of mine and I tried it. We had a basement, but we didn't know what we were doing. We had some lighting, we had buckets, we had like a system where we fed the water from the bottom up. So we had like, but it was just a makeshift kind of project where the plants grew, but we ended up figuring out that they were male dominant seeds, so there was no budding of the flower. So it was just this.
Well, you can still make some cookies or some oil out of it, but yeah, that's a shame. Where did you got your seeds when you did? I'm curious.
I have no idea. He had them. It wasn't even my operation. He brought them in one day and he was like, "Hey, you want to try it?" And we had like a couple of them, and we followed the instructions on Google or whatever we were searching.
Yeah,
That was in like 2010, you know. But it was an unsuccessful grow. It basically is what I'll say. Uh,
yeah.
but so my question to you is it's interesting that you got into this space when Argentina is totally not friendly at all with cannabis. So like what made you think, oh, here's an opportunity that I should capitalize outside of even where I live?
Well, my co-founders and me, we met in high school, and we are from a generation that we started learning how to program when we were like 13 or 12 and 14. We are tech guys. We want to use tech solutions for everything. If there's a possibility to put electricity on it and make it work on its own, we want it. We want it. And we had our careers. Some of us were working. I was working in banking and insurance as a consultant in IT. And my other co-founders, one of them is a movie editor and director, so he's an artist. And we had the other co-founders who are programmers, coming from the e-commerce background. And we wanted to work together, and we wanted to build a solution for somebody like us. And we wanted something disruptive. And in our minds, and back in 2014, 2015, disruptive was either crypto or cannabis. We chose cannabis because that's another thing that we were doing. And we know from our experience working overseas or as a remote worker that there's no boundaries if you're doing a digital solution. We knew a lot of people in Spain growing cannabis. We knew a lot of people in Italy. We knew a lot of people in Germany. We knew a lot of people in the US. So kind of looking at only trying to get a single country would have been stupid. I think we launched in English, actually. I think we didn't have any other languages, and now we have 9.
What year was that you launched?
2017,
2017.
July.
And how many users do you have now?
We're going over 45,000, 48,000 active people all the time using it and growing together and collaborating, talking to each other.
Wow. So what is the market look like for personal cannabis growth? Like, I don't know if you could give me like a percentage country by country or worldwide, but like how many people are doing this?
A lot. We have a couple of numbers that come from a lot of different sources. When we had to pitch to investors, we had to get those numbers. Like, what is your approximation of how many people are there growing weed. And there's no straight source. So what we did was basically take the numbers from a bunch of them, places doing statistics on drug abuse and the arrest, and we started to use all those parameters to check on the numbers. And I can tell you that, no, this is not it.
You came prepared, see?
I came prepared? No, apparently not.
Yeah.
I should have prepared better. I should know this. I'm running a company. Don't get mad at me.
No judgment.
No judgment. We calculate there's around 50 million cannabis home growers all over the world, and we only consider the ones that are in countries that have access to 4G networks, and they have access to not only being able to grow, but also consume other products like buy fertilizers and lights and pesticides, and being able to be a part of that kind of culture.
Okay, so 50 million worldwide, and your sources for that are through licensing, obviously, in states where it's legal to do so, criminal records, like all these different things, like any indicator that you can get, basically, of someone who would have homegrown.
Yeah, for example, one of the small data points is Uruguay. Uruguay, you can grow weed in your own house up to 6 plants, but you have to register with the state to do it legally. So they have public access to that record. So you can see how many people are growing cannabis in their houses legally and check how the population of that country is. So you can see a percentage of the country, how many of them are growing cannabis. And there's a bunch of countries similar to Uruguay. It's not the same Uruguay to South Africa, or it's not the same to the US maybe, but it's similar to other countries like Chile or Argentina or similar countries in culture. So we started using those parameters to basically try to have an estimate, a conservative estimate of cannabis home growers.
Mm-hmm. And would you say, like, where does the U.S. fare in your user base? Like, are we top 5, top 3, number 1?
It's number 1.
Number 1.
Yeah, at least in our user base. That doesn't mean that we are correlating that to the amount of people living in the country. We were speaking before, like the U.S. has 340 million people. So it's not the same to compare it to, Uruguay, which are, 15 million. I don't even know how many of them
are
there. So it's not fair. But yeah, the US is ranking really high. First, I think Spain is second. We have a bunch of countries of Europe and Latin America.
That's awesome. Well, I think it's a really cool thing that you guys are doing. I mean, you're basically providing the know-how, the resources, and the tools for someone who really wants to educate themselves to grow the plant the right way for medicinal purposes or even recreational purposes. That's an amazing thing, man. So hats off to what y'all are doing. I do have somewhat of roots in the IT, the technology space. I worked for Dell and AT&T and Sabre, but on the marketing side. And I'm wondering, like, when it comes to like biometric technology, I know back then, and this was 5 to 7 years ago, it was easier, obviously, for Facebook to recognize someone than the FBI. I think the stat was like it takes Facebook 2 sources to identify one person, as opposed to the FBI at the time that was like 48. And I'm sure there's collaboration going on with the 2 now. But like, how much has biometric technology advanced in terms of like these applications that y'all are creating, where you can literally understand what strain the plant is, or when to water it, or lighting. So talk me through. I mean, to keep it as simplified as possible, obviously, because I'm no technologist. Again, I was on the marketing side, but yeah.
So if we're talking about how we advise people, in that sense, it's tricky. That's the short answer. Why? It's not the same for you. I don't know what temperature is around your house, and it's not the same for me. I'm in winter, for example, and we have people all over the world, and you have the humidity levels. So whenever you have a light aimed at the plant, I can give you an advice to water every couple of days, and I'm going to be wrong maybe, because a light is too hot, it's too close, you're in the middle of summer, and I might kill your plant because it's not enough. Um, and yeah, the seed providers give you instructions on how to grow those plants. They are not looking that people have jobs. We started designing this thinking I am working from 9 to 5, and then I have to go to work out, and then I have to do all the things. I don't have time to spend 2 hours to understand my plant. So we try to dumb it down as much as possible. Um, there is a safe space between the ideal and the bare minimum that you can advise people on how to do things when you're growing cannabis plants. And yeah, that safe space is not going to give you the best plant in the world, but it's going to give you a plant, and you're going to be able to harvest it, and consume it. And hopefully, the next time you grow, you're going to see that there's a better place than where you are right now. That is either watering a little bit more or a little bit less, and try to get out of that comfort zone. So yeah, that's tricky. But at the same time, we have a lot of information, and by information I mean I can tell you anonymous information about how often are people watering a specific strain of cannabis plants, and what is the result. So if you ask me, I can tell you what is the ideal condition for a AK-47 from a specific strain breeder. And with that information, I can give better advice. We call that insights.
So you're getting that data from the actual farmer who is planting and growing those particular strains, or those geneticists. You're working with them to understand the best lighting and soil and water levels. And then that information is then fed to your end user who is looking to grow that specific strain.
No, I'm partially. So I'm getting the information from the vendors, which is publicly accessible. You can talk to them, but they have the same information. But I have right now we have around 50,000 cannabis home growers, and I had those like last month, and then last month I had another one, and they grew several batches of cannabis plants. They have around the average grower in our software has 6, 7 plants. So I know how they did whatever they did from seed to harvest, and what's the result? How much did they harvested? Was the plant sick ever? So I can grab all that information, put it in a database, and check what is the ideal way to grow a specific strain. Because I already had maybe 50,000 plants grown of that specific strain. I can learn from how the growers did and what's the result.
I see. The data is captured based off of the behaviors of the user and them documenting what they're doing with the
Yeah,
right.
pretty much. While we help them, they give us enough information so we can help them again and another people growing cannabis. Maybe they are in Spain, and by using our software, they're helping people in the US.
Mm-hmm. And is there like a chat forum or some type of way where these people can interact and engage with one another?
Yeah, we have a community where people, the subscribers, because we have a free access, and if you subscribe to our platform, you get unlocked access to a couple of features and access to the community. And the community is basically a safe place where people can talk to each other in a private manner and grow together and get advice from people who are maybe growing 20 plants for the last 10 years.
Yeah. Well, that's speaking of like when we first opened up about COVID during this pandemic, have you seen an increase in user adoption of your app?
Yeah, a lot, specifically in the US. The US has been growing a lot. I was just talking to somebody about, we had a small team meeting today, and we started talking about metrics and comparing ourselves to the competition and other companies. And we kept growing. Like last month, we grew our user base by 15%.
Wow.
And that was not the norm. Maybe we grew like a 4 to 7%, but 15, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you're going to continue to see that more and more, as word of mouth gets out, and there's podcasts like this where we have the opportunity to really showcase the value of what you guys are doing with technology, and cannabis. So
Yeah, hopefully it's not because of another pandemic. Like ideally.
No, no, we're done with pandemics. No more.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about your app. We've talked about what it does. Uh, Now let's talk about the actual like growing itself, right? That process. So after looking at your website and your social media, basically it sounds like there's two main stages of the life cycle of the plant. There's the vegetative cycle and then there's the flowering cycle. So do you want to start with that and then maybe discuss best journaling techniques or grow log techniques and trimming techniques and other nutrient beneficial things that they can do for the plant?
Sure. So cannabis plants are easy to grow. That's not something that we hide. Like this is a plant that shows you exactly what she needs all the time. You already have to look at it. Kind of like sunflowers, when they follow the sun, their immediate reaction to whatever they have around them. The same happened with cannabis plants. Cannabis plants are photoperiodic. I think I pronounced that properly. So basically, they switch the stage of the plant whenever they feel like the days are getting shorter, which is the winter time. So to simplify it, and I'm no expert in cannabis on growing, let's say I'm a really educated amateur. Basically, when you're growing cannabis plants, you have to know that they are two main stages and a small little stage at the beginning. The small little stage is what we call seedling, and it's the period between when you put the seed in the soil and it started to pop out of the dirt up until it starts to have like 3 sets of leaves. Once you get there, it's what we call vegetation. Vegetation is a stage of the plant where it's the warm weather, which is summer and spring, where it starts to show all the green parts and it starts to all the ramifications of a plant. This is the part of a plant that uses a lot of nitrogen. That's why you're going to hear a lot of people talk about nitrogen fertilizers. So in this stage, you want to grow it as much as possible, as much ramifications as possible. You can also train it, which we may talk a little bit later.
Yeah, go ahead. You can talk about it now.
So training is basically forcing the plants to do things that are not exactly natural to it. For example, once the plant is growing, you can tie it down to the side and it starts growing again from that side. So you can make sure that all the light hits the bottom of a plant, or you can spread all of the branches. So once you have all the branches spread, you can get a lot more light. Usually cannabis plants grows like a pine, like this shape. The problem with this shape is that the light hits all of the outside of a plant, but not the inside. It's really hard once you have it on a tent or the sun is not hot enough to get all the light inside. So once you go into flowering and you want to harvest, all those little buds look like little popcorns, and it's difficult to consume, let's say, because they're too small. But when you do training, you do it to make sure that as much light as possible is hitting the plant on every single side and inside in the core, so you can grow better flowers.
Okay.
So on the flowering side, let's say your plant is growing, it's vegetating, and it has a lot of leaves, and it's healthy because you managed to protect it from bugs and all other pests. Then the days get the hours of the day the light day hours of the day, because you're going into winter, for example, are getting shorter. That means you get around 12 hours of light. That's when the plants start flowering. It starts showing what sex the plant is, which you had a bad experience with. And it start putting out the flowers. These flowers are basically the fruit of the plant, let's say. That's how it produces the seeds. But it needs a male to pollinate it, which I'm not going to explain the biology of that. And once it starts flowering, it basically doubles its size up until you harvest it. Mm-hmm. And that is on a pretty fast way how the cannabis plant grows. It's not hard. Again, it's a literal weed. This thing, you can pop it on a soil in a park and it's going to grow and it's going to be beautiful. You just got to take care of it.
You just got to take, yeah. And when you talk about those two life cycles, the vegetative versus the flowering, is there one or the other where journaling and you know, keeping grow logs are more important, or is it important throughout the entire process so that if somebody that really wants to get better, you know, um,
Well, it's about being organized. That's where we try to come in. There is a small structure to growing a cannabis plant. There's a small structure to growing any plants. The problem is that most people kill their house plants all the time. And with cannabis plants, as long as you water it kind of often, and as long as you don't overwater it, and you make sure that the stuff you put in the plant, the fertilizers are proper, and they have the right amount, that thing is going to grow. But a lot of people, for example, are growing cannabis in their houses, and they have 3, 4 family members living in the same household. And all of a sudden, you go and water it, and then your wife goes in and waters it, and your son goes in and waters it, and the plant is dead. Or the house cat decided to kill it, for example. That happens quite often. You just gotta be organized. You gotta know that every couple of days you gotta water it, check it, and don't touch it anymore. That thing is going to keep growing. And if it looks like it needs water because it's looking, you know, withered and sad, give it water and a little bit of light, and that thing is going to pop in, and it's going to look green and beautiful and happy.
what about
Yeah.
talking to it and petting it? Is that a myth, or you know, loving on it and speaking gently to the plant? Does that add any benefit?
I have seen no study saying that it does anything bad. So if you want to do it, just go for it. Growing cannabis is a healthy and fun and relaxing experience. And if you want to add music to it, go for it.
I totally agree. Yeah, no, there's something methodic about it, for sure. So, well, great. I have one other question for you, and it's about Mama Cultiva. Um,
Yeah.
and I believe, I guess, that Grow with Jane, y'all are partnering with Mama Cultiva, or what's the mission there? What are you trying to do?
No, we're not partners. We just support their fight. Mama Cultiva, I think you have an expression in the US as well, the Mama Bears. Um, Mama Cultiva is just an organization fighting for the right to access medicine for children who have the need of it. There's a bunch of children who have a specific illness that I'm no expert to mention or talk about them, that need access to cannabis products. And by cannabis products, I'm not sure the expression, but basically these children have seizures, and there is no medicine you can get in a drugstore that is going to solve it. And some of them have 5, 10, 20 seizures in an hour. So having access to specific cannabis oil, which again, I'm no expert to talk about that, and put it in cookie preparations or some type of specific preparations, allows that kid to have a normal life. And not supporting those kind of fights, it's stupid. They are a great organization. We spoke to them a couple of times, and we met each other in separate events. The only thing that it's sometimes hard is you don't know how to help. I have no kids. I can empathize with them and try to help them, but they have another fire in their eyes, and you can only stand beside them and try to support them as much as you can. But it's incredible what these organizations are trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, no, it's a good fight that needs to be had, and it's just amazing the medicinal benefits of, you know, whether it's CBD or THC, especially when it comes to epilepsy and seizures, like you mentioned. So the more that we have organizations like Mama Cultiva that can inform the public and work with people and mothers and fathers to help their kids, I mean, I'm all for that, you know. So that's great that y'all are working with them.
Yeah, it's weird because we've been in the U.S. and it changes your mind when you look. Like, people can go well, not everywhere, but people can go to the corner store and buy some cannabis flowers, or they can buy oil, and they can have access to that. And after looking at the struggle that they get here, or in Chile or Uruguay or many other countries, to have access to the thing that it's medicine for them. This is not medicine for me. I use it for my own entertainment. And even though I want to have the right to get it, I if the fight is around something else, and better, because how can I explain it? It feels like I'm fighting for something really banal and something that it doesn't make sense. There's no rush for it, because these people should have priority. And if the law should move forward to get people health faster, they don't need it today. They need it 10 years ago. They need it 25 years ago. So we support them fully, and every other organization around the world that needs free access to cannabis.
Yeah, I share the frustration with you, man. It's a global. There's this kind of global stigma still, where
Yeah.
we just need to get past it, and we've missed out on so many years of just learning about the plant and all of its properties. I don't know what South America looks like in terms of its industrial hemp market, but since the U.S. passed the 2018 Farm Bill. It's allowed massive cultivation state by state for hemp. And so while it's so early and in its infancy, we're going to start to see the effects of that industry in the coming years. So but to answer your point, it's really there's so many areas that this plant touches, which is why it's so political in a way also, and there's so much red tape.
Yeah. Again, how can the U.S. specifically or some states have access to cannabis plants? One of the things we saw is that you cannot drive a truck with flowers from one state to the other, which is stupid. And you have the federal law behaving a way, and the state has another way completely. There seems to be a disconnection between the parties involved in all this, and hopefully you guys are going to get over it, and you're going to be able to show the rest of the world that you can have it without becoming chaos. I think there's a bunch of people thinking that as soon as you legalize weed, like everybody's going to smoke weed in the street and everyone's going to die, and that's not happening anywhere. So why would it happen?
I don't
It's
think
insane.
well in the U.S. So I mean, based obviously the way in which our government operates, you have the federal government and you have the state government. So I think that it's okay however the states want to run their local cannabis programs, recreation or even on the hemp side. But what's hampering everyone is that at the federal level, the plant is still listed as a Schedule 1 narcotic. It's still federally illegal. So that's why it's weird, because there's some states that are medicinal, but and even recreational, right? Because the people of that state have voted to say, hey, we want recreational cannabis or we want medicinal cannabis. So it's just complicated things because the federal government has kind of been slow to act. Obviously, over the I don't how many ever years, it's been 50 years now. So that's why it's complicated. Once the federal government lessens the restrictions and takes it off of the list where heroin and cocaine and methamphetamine is listed, that's when we can have more peer review studies. We can have more, user adoption and actually learning about the value and the properties of the plant, so.
Yeah, and less incarcerations. I don't know how familiar with it, but how familiar you are with it. But Steve D'Angelo is fighting using the name of the last prisoner, and they are fighting to avoid getting more people going to prisons just because they have a joint in their pocket, which is fucking stupid. They're put in the same jail with a murderer, and they are not criminals. They have a joint in their pocket, and it's ridiculous. Or places where now cannabis is deemed essential business have people in the jail because they had a little bit of weed in their pockets.
Yeah, did you read
Insanity.
Elon Musk's tweet about that? He actually tweeted about that.
Yeah, I saw it. I think Steve posted something with a screen capture of that. Yeah, it's a conundrum to quote Elon Musk, because as soon as you do it, somebody comes out with, "Well, he also said," this horrible sentence.
Do that for everybody. I mean,
Yeah,
we're all human beings at the end of the day, and we say stuff,
yeah,
and everyone has, right? I don't think there's
yes,
anybody on the planet that has never said anything stupid or said something they didn't mean or wanted to take back. And
yeah,
it's too easy anymore to just go back, 5 years ago on Twitter and just call someone out. So who cares about that? The point is, right now, that tweet that he said is very valid, and
yeah.
it's what you're echoing, which is very, it's weird, right? And I'm glad we need more people in his position to call those ironies out. You know.
Yeah, maybe we are. Well, we're definitely in a moment of change globally. This not only because the pandemic hit us in the face like a brick, but because of many other social things that are happening in the US. There's a bunch of things happening right now, but the rest of the world is already going through another process, and Europe is going through a process, and Latin America is going through a process. I think we're going to a better spot. Maybe we're not getting there fast enough, but I think we're doing better because of, like you said, like people with a big platform being able to speak out and speak in the right message. And hopefully we can get all those people who are not given the proper message, or not the proper message. That sounded like shit. I mean, all those people trying to talk about hate to not have the platform that allows them to do so.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. It's definitely showing some people's colors, and it's good that there are public figures out there that are calling out those injustices and saying, "Hey, no, this is wrong," and voices are being heard. It's a good reset. We got to look at the positives of the pandemic and the lockdown, and I can share a personal example. At first, I just was consuming myself with the news and what was happening and the press briefings and what's this, what's that, and it's going down rabbit holes, and it's just not healthy. Like you're reading things online, you're getting upset, or you're even having private discussions online with people where you're going back and forth. And so this podcast has really been a blessing in disguise for me, because it allows me an opportunity to educate myself in the industrial hemp industry and cannabis industry, and I get to talk to interesting fellows like you who are developing really, really cool products, man. I really like what Grow with Jane's objective and mission is, and it sounds like you're helping a lot of home growers out there. So I mean, with that, is there anything that you want to leave the audience with, or plug?
No, you can join us in growwithchain.com. And even if you don't use our platform because it's not your thing, a lot of people use whiteboards and notepads, and it's awesome. Just keep growing weed, keep growing your own medicine, or grow any kind of plant. You need some green in your life. You need to be able to have that. And it's not a mystical thing, a bit of connection to the green. We're all locked down in our houses and apartments. Just do a little bit of gardening. I assure you it's going to do you well.
Yeah. I want to track your progress. So Nico, the next plant or seed that you put in the ground, maybe send me pictures like once a week, and we'll post them on our Instagram, and we'll kind of show some progress as to what strain you're growing, and give you some shout outs that way. That'd be fun content.
No, that will be awesome. I'll send you not only the photos, I'll name it after you.
All right, we'll take it, man. Awesome. Hey,
All right.
I appreciate having you on. I definitely want to have you on again once things settle a bit more, and Argentina lifts more of their restrictions, and you guys can get back to full capacity, full operation again. So until then, though, be well, brother. Thanks so much for being on, okay?
Thank you, man. I had a good time.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.